but I also wanted to share this because that's the beauty of a psychology degree. It's really very versatile and you can go into any industry. Gen Z, they actually feel the most comfortable or their most authentic self online. And that's very different for like a millennial or a boomer to understand, because they're like, and that's what we do at APU. We were actually the first university to offer this cyberpsychology module. There are other universities that are cropping up now which are offering it, but we were the first because we strongly believe in that technology integration.
Hai semuanya, kembali lagi di episode podcast bersama Sun Education. Kali ini kita sudah ditemani oleh tamu spesial dari Asia Pacific University di Malaysia, khususnya seorang lecturer yang berpengalaman di bidang psikologi. Jadi kita akan ngobrolin banyak hal menarik nih, mulai dari dunia psikologi, lalu ada juga upcoming trend yaitu adalah Cyberpsychology bersama Miss Vinorra dari APU. And so we'll just say hello. Hi Miss Vinorra, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, Valerie. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for making time to talk to us and our audiences about APU and especially psychology today. So to start off, could you tell us a bit about your background and how you became a lecturer in psychology at APU?
Okay, great. So this is a little bit of a story, and I think it's important to share this because one of the things that I've always said about a psychology degree is that it's very flexible and it's very versatile. So I'll give you a bit of my background, so a bit of story time, okay? So I started off doing my degree in psychology, focusing in psychology and also international studies, because I just wanted to have a second major. I then went on to do my postgraduate diploma in psychology. Now, the reason for this is because way back when I was studying, it was very limited in terms of the knowledge about what you can do with a psychology degree.
Right.
And so I actually did a Bachelor of Arts, and the Bachelor of Arts was not an honors program. And so after I graduate, ready to apply for my master's, I found out that I couldn't do that because it was only a 3-year degree.
Okay.
So I went on to do my postgraduate diploma in psychology in Singapore, and I focused in stalking behavior. And I had that interest in looking at, these kind of behaviors of people and what motivates them to be that way. After that, when I came back, I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do, because at that point in time, it was either clinical or counseling.
Right.
So what I did was I went and got a job, and my job was actually in public relations, which is very corporate. But my psychology degree was very beneficial for that, because I could actually craft narratives for media and for people consumption of products in that sense. Stayed there for about 4 years, and then because I was very passionate in education and in psychology, I still went on to do my master's in counseling. I did that, and then I came back, and an opportunity opened up for me to go into education. So I come from a family of educators. My mom's a teacher, my grandmother's a teacher, and I actually said that I would never do teaching, but I went into lecturing, and long story short, I fell in love with it. And I also knew that it was a space that I needed to be in to educate people about what you can do with a psychology degree. Ever since then, I have been lecturing. I went into being a head of program, and right now at APU, I am the head of school for psychology.
Right.
Yeah, so very long story of how I got here, but I also wanted to share this because that's the beauty of a psychology degree. It's really very versatile, and you can go into any industry.
I love that. I love how you start off in PR and then you jump into education, and that's where you find your passion. And as you mentioned, psychology is so diverse and versatile. So I want to ask more about that. It's a really broad field, right? So what do you think is the relevance to psychology in today's maybe industry, to maybe Indonesian students who are looking to study psychology at APU?
Yeah, I think the relevance has always been there. It's something that is continuously growing. And if you take, for example, for Indonesian students, if you look at Indonesia as a whole, I think there's a lot of opportunity for the mental health space.
Right.
So people with a psychology degree can come into that from the clinical background, from those perspectives. But if it sounds a bit daunting, like clinical or counseling, or if that's something that maybe you're worried won't bring in enough money, you can also go into business and marketing. Because if you look at product design these days, a lot of times when we browse past in the aisles, we look at the products and what stands out to us most, the packaging, right? If it looks pretty, if it looks cute, we want to buy it. At the same time, those kind of things actually look at consumer behavior. So there's a lot of research and design that goes into why you're even designing a particular product.
Yes.
So if you're interested in that, for example, or if you're looking at companies and, for example, productivity. So as an industrial organizational psychologist, that's what you're looking at. Because at the end of the day, when people are happy, productivity goes up. People want to work. Apart from that as well, I think in various fields like human resources, if you're interested in people behavior in a workplace setting, that's also an area that you can contribute in. I think if you look at the chart of what you can do with a psychology degree, it's almost limitless. Well, obviously you can't, be a surgeon or be an engineer, but if you're looking at the different fields that there is, because one of the things I always say is that whichever industry you're in, there's always going to be people. If you look at robots nowadays, they're trying to make robots more human-like. So psychology is about understanding human behavior. Why do we act the way we do? Why do we think the way we do? Why do we feel the way we do? And in every and any industry, having those skill sets, being analytical, for example, all of those things are going to be extremely beneficial.
Wow. I could not have summarized that better. So funny you were talking about robots, because that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned in earlier in the video, I said that one of the things we're gonna talk about is cyberpsychology. This is a completely new term for me. So could you maybe explain what it is and what's important? Why is it important in the field today, cyberpsychology?
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Valerie, for that question, because it's one of the things that I strongly advocate for. Cyberpsychology is essentially looking at our interaction with technology and how that interaction influences and affects our behavior. There's two ways to go about it. One is interaction, the other is integration. Okay. So if you look at all of us nowadays, we are somehow always connected to a device.
Yes.
The way we communicate has shifted so drastically. If you take counseling, for example, it used to be that face-to-face counseling was, the best and the only way to go about it, because you look at non-verbal cues, you look at body language and all of those things. But the pandemic has kind of forced us to look at different alternatives, whereby telecounseling or online counseling has come about. Now, these are all ways that we look at the understanding of human behavior and how technology influences us. One of the recent research or article that I've read is that Gen Z, they actually feel the most comfortable or their most authentic self online. And that's very different for like a millennial or a boomer to understand, because they're like, what do you mean you feel the most real self online? Because that's where you kind of curate your personality. You can be whatever and whoever you want. And that's what they feel is authentic, which is a bit mind-blowing. So cyberpsychology looks at this, looks at understanding how do you address people, or how do you address a generation that lives their life online. The other thing is also looking at integrating technology, so eye tracking or EEG or virtual reality into, again, the bottom line of understanding human behavior. And your question on what is important, is it? I think it's something that we really need to get on board with, and that's what we do at APU. We were actually the first university to offer this cyberpsychology module. There are other universities that are cropping up now which are offering it, but we were the first because we strongly believe in that technology integration, and that's where the future is really.
Right. Wow. So I wouldn't have even thought that we could understand human through their behaviors with technology, which is amazing. So talking about students now, we've from your perspective, what kind of student profile or personality tends to thrive in studying psychology at APU? Maybe especially in cyberpsychology, since it is like an up and coming major.
Okay, I think generally someone who is very, tech driven in that sense. They're interested in not just using technology, but truly understanding what does it do. For example, when you look at all these ads that pop up, it's fun, right? When you talk about something, next thing you know on social media, it's showing you all these ads.
Yeah.
It's really fun to think about it, or it's really scary to think about it at times. But someone who truly wants to understand how the algorithm of this works, we're looking at biases, for example, how certain social media is designed for you to consume more of it. Like one of the things, if you look at TikTok or if you look at Instagram Reels, for example, the action of, just scrolling, endless scrolling.
Right.
So that is equivalent to like when you go to a casino and you do the slot machine.
Right.
The moment you do that motion, you're waiting for something to pop up. So it's that instant gratification that you get, either a video that you like or an ad that you like, or if you're shopping. So that whole motion of using that, endless scrolling, for example, all of this are designed for human consumption, for us to be, we just can't seem to put our phones down once we start scrolling.
Yeah.
So why is it this way? So I think that genuine interest in understanding how technology works and how it's affecting human behavior is very important. I think also empathy, because a lot of times we can, when we want to study psychology, it's about truly understanding someone. It's not about trying to formulate a diagnosis, or it's not about trying to say that I'm better than you because I know how you're acting or how you're thinking. Not at all. It's about putting yourself in that person's shoes and trying to understand where that person is coming from. And I think the other skill set would be someone who's genuinely analytical. There's a lot of research and evidence that goes into studying psychology in general, but specifically for cyberpsychology, it's very, very research and evidence based in that sense. So someone who's analytical, someone who's willing to, crunch the numbers or look at script, for example, those are good skill sets to have.
Right. Okay, that's lovely. So we've talked about psychology in general and cyberpsychology. So I feel like our viewers now can understand a bit about the major, and I want to jump into the benefits of studying at APU. So when it comes to studying psychology, what do you think makes APU's program unique compared to other universities in Malaysia or even in the region?
Okay, I think speaking from someone who has been part of the program, one of the things that really stands out is the innovativeness. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Valerie, we were the first ones who came up with the cyberpsychology module. And that already shows you the kind of depth, the way that APU thinks about their programs and thinks about their students. One of the things that that's always been ingrained in us is that we're not nurturing graduates, we're not nurturing students, but we're nurturing professionals. So we make sure that our program equips students to be ready as soon as they're done, as soon as they graduate, they go into the working world. So there's a lot of industry liaison with the program. There's a lot of tech infusion. If you've had a chance to visit our space, you will see that we have all these different labs.
Right.
So we have labs with the EEG device, we have labs with the eye tracker. We also kind of co-share the virtual reality studio with the computing school, and we allow our students to use this technology, give them an idea of what they can do. It's not just there as a showcase piece, but students actually integrate this as part of their curriculum. So that's really what it is. We're ensuring that they're ready, and they're always going to be 10 steps ahead of anyone else that graduates.
Wow, okay. So speaking of curriculum, as you just mentioned, could you maybe walk us through the structure of the coursework, and what can students expect in terms of coursework and practical experiences, as you said earlier?
Okay, so in terms of the coursework, the curriculum itself, in year one, it's a lot of foundational modules. So you've got your introduction to psychology, developmental, social, a lot of theory focused in that sense, as with most psychology programs in any other university. Then in your year two, you go into the more technical. So that's where you have biological psychology, cognitive psychology. And in these modules is where you get to use the technology as part of your assessments. Then in your third year, you get to go into a little bit more of specialization. It is a Bachelor of Science program, which means that the electives are mainly psychology focused. So you have positive psychology, forensic psychology, and of course, cyberpsychology in your year three as well. Now, in terms of at the end of year three, in the first and the second semester, there is a final year project. So students are exposed to research all throughout from year two right up until year three. And some of our students have actually published their papers, which is a great testament for these students because by the time they graduate, they already have a publication in hand.
Wow.
And so that's an opportunity for those who want to go into research and academia, who want to become a lecturer, for example, or who want to become a teacher. By the time they graduate, they've already got a paper in hand, which is very helpful.
Right. 10 steps ahead. Like
Exactly.
You mentioned. You're right.
And in terms of the practical part of it, so our program has an internship module. So at the end of year two and at the start of year three, they're required to go out and do a 4-month internship program.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is compulsory for all students, actually across all programs in APU. And what a lot of times you'll find that internship is always at the end of year three.
Yes.
Now, APU is a little bit unique, and the reason why we put it at the end of year two, start of year three is because a lot of times students have textbook knowledge. They're great, they're really smart. And when they go out, they realize that there's a little bit of a gap in terms of applying all of this knowledge.
Right.
So having gone out at the end of year two and then they come back in their year three, it gives them a lot of opportunity to actually build up what they probably did not have. And this is not necessarily textbook skills or knowledge in that sense, but it's more of the soft skills. So for example, when you call for a meeting, what do you do? What are the steps? Simple things like when you're taking down meeting minutes, you don't write every single thing that is being discussed. You write key points. So all of these soft skills. And our students come back and they tell us, Miss, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to get involved in this. And we're like, great, do all of that because this is your opportunity to really see where there's growth opportunity and to really build that up before you finally graduate and go out into the world. And then that way we can't really help you as much anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really balanced between coursework and hands-on experience, which is amazing. So earlier we talked about APU's campus. I've actually been there. I've had the chance to go. It was so
awesome.
big and it's really lovely. So talking about the campus for international students, including those from Indonesia, of course, are there any support in campus environment that APU provides?
Yes, plenty of support. Now, one of the things we do pride ourselves on is that we're the most, we're the university with the most number of international students. We've got students from over 130 different countries. And we've actually got a huge Indonesian population as well. They're a community of their own. So they're very well supported within that. We have student ambassadors. We have our student services team. In terms of health, we have a clinic on campus as well. We do have well-being counselors. So you can name it for a student life. There is so much of support. And I think what's also important is that the experience that they get. For example, in the psychology program, one of the things that we do is obviously understanding human behavior. So when you have students from various countries come together to discuss a topic, let's say, for example, bias or prejudice, when you just have one community discussing it, sometimes it's a bit, it's rich, but not that rich because everybody understands what everybody is going through. But when you have students from multiple communities coming together to discuss this one topic, I think that itself is an experience that you won't necessarily get anywhere else. And it's because of how international APU is. So I think you can name it in terms of student support, health support, whether even academic support. We have academic leaders and program leaders that actually look after a student's whole journey. So it's really a very wholesome place. A lot of times people who come and study there actually end up staying on to do some kind of work with the university as part of the student services team. So that ecosystem is very fully equipped, that you just feel like it's part of home. And especially for Indonesian students, I mean, culture-wise, Indonesia and Malaysia is not that different.
Yeah, exactly.
So food, I know Indonesia does have better food, but we do have a variety as well for students. I think in terms of culture, language, it's easier to assimilate for them.
Okay, so Indonesian students, you don't have to worry about settling in APU because it's as Ms. Vinorra just explained, it offers a lot of support, anything that you need. So Ms. Vinorra, lastly, why do you think APU is a great place for students to study psychology? Of course, you've just explained, but maybe if you could explain it one more time to students, if this is the only thing they can take away, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I think I want to go back a little bit to explain that in a psychology program, okay, so you need to know what you want to become first, right? So where you want to kind of go through. And a lot of times parents, sometimes students themselves feel like at the undergraduate level, I don't really want to go overseas. I'll do it for my master's. Now, this is a little bit of a challenge when it comes to a psychology program because where you do your master's is essentially where you get your license and where you'll be able to practice. So it's very different from other programs where, you do your undergraduate in the home country and then you go and do your master's overseas. But for psychology, I would highly recommend doing your undergraduate anywhere else at APU. And then your master's, you got to decide if you want to stay in APU if you want to stay in Malaysia to practice, then you can go ahead and do your master's in Malaysia. But if you decide to come back to Indonesia, then you have to come back to Indonesia and do your master's here because this is where you'll get your registration. This is where you'll get your licensing. So for an undergraduate psychology program, anywhere in the world, you will cover the similar content because it's foundational. So that's not an issue at all. And for that reason is why I'm really encouraging students to venture out to do your psychology degree overseas. And obviously, we welcome you to APU. And for some of the reasons, as I mentioned earlier, we ensure that you're equipped, not just within the program itself, but by the time you graduate, you're already so much more ahead than your peers around you. The other thing is we are a Bachelor of Science program, an honors program. So that's 3 years. So you get to save 1 year off in terms of, cost of living, in terms of tuition fees and all of that. Third thing would be, I think the environment itself, the multiculturalism within APU and within the School of Psychology itself, I can strongly vouch for how supportive everyone is. The lecturers, the faculty members, even right up to me, students have access to the head of school, which is really rare. In most places, you hardly ever see your head of school or your dean. But in APU, it's not like that because of the way everything is structured. The environment is just very supportive for students. And I think that in itself is part of your experience as an undergraduate student. The program is one thing, but you have to make sure that you're in an environment that supports your wants and your needs. So in terms of sports activities, in terms of cultural events, all of that is really strongly supported within APU.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ms. Vinorra, for your time and to explain a little bit and give insight to Sun Education's students and probably future APU students as well into a little bit into their psychology major. So untuk teman-teman yang penasaran dan mau tahu lebih banyak mengenai jurusan psikologi atau jurusan apapun di Asia Pacific University di Malaysia, do contact Sun Education sekarang juga, and I'll see you at the next episode.
Gimana? Udah siap kuliah di luar negeri? Jangan lupa subscribe dan nonton video lainnya ya. Buruan!